computer. Oh, okay. That's scary. Now I have to watch my tongue and I have to be careful what I do. So now, okay. And I'm going to upload the recordings to Campus so that you can, I will put a link to the recordings. And good luck with listening to my accent in your free time. But anyway, there's going to be a very important tool in our communication, which is called a Campus Moodle platform. And this is the platform that you are supposed to have access, all of you, and I'm going to test it right now. Have you tried and accessed that? I know that some of you did, some of you didn't. Do you know what Campus platform is? Okay, all right. That's a lot of silence. I'll have to answer it myself. Okay, so let me show you what it is. And we will see. Okay, this is the platform that I'm talking about. It's called Campus, right? Once you go online and you just say Campus UW, this is what it should show you. Campus, the main page. Mine is in Polish, but you can switch languages. And there is, when you go to your courses, you log in the same way as you do for USOS system, the University Student Service System. When you go to My Courses, you will see all the courses that you are signed up. These are all my courses. This is yours. So you go to International Marketing and you will see all the information already provided, including what sessions do we have, course syllabus. This is actually my the way I see it. So you can also see stuff that is hidden, course assessment, place to submit group project, some tasks, and so on. So I can also see participants, and I can see if you accessed the class and when. So I can see that Mustafa just did it 53 seconds ago. So it is a very transparent platform. Lola did it, Nicholas did it, right? And I would like you to make sure that you can access it, because you will have the presentations there, you will have tasks there, and you will have the recordings, and also the test, the final test will be provided on that platform. Is there anyone who has issues with accessing this particular space? Okay, I don't hear anyone. Can I call you by your names? Because I know that there are some people, like Angela, you never logged in. Can you access it? Yes, you can. You're nodding your head. You're not saying anything, but I can see you, so thank you for that. Okay, you can access the... Okay, she's trying. Good. Okay. Valentina? She can. Marina can. Okay, excellent. Yukina? I know that person is present, so you should have access to that. Okay, many people have access. I feel like a crazy person. I'm talking to silence, but it will pass. I will recover. Okay, so most of you, okay, I can see Claudia just joined, perfect. Okay, so just that you know, it is actually important that you have access to it. All our communication will happen through that platform. And also when I sent you an invitation email, it went through that platform. So it is important that you have access to the class. Okay, then. So now let's move on. And now let's go back to my presentation. It's going to be back and forth. And let's discuss the further organizational stuff. So as for the group project, what is it going to be about? It is going to be a project when you will put the theory that we discussed during class into practice. I'm going to ask you, and this is going to be your task pretty soon. Actually, it is your task for the next few weeks to find out. I will put you in small groups, those groups of 4 people, And I will ask you to find a company which is small. And by small company, I understand a micro or a small company, which means that it's preferably not more than 50 people who work there. Ideally, the smaller the company, the better, simply because it is going to be easier for you to design a marketing strategy for a product to internationalize. I'm going to show you some companies that I find interesting during our next meeting, which is going to be in a few weeks. But ideally, I want you to find a company that you find interesting, that you can find information about. And it really has to be, it is important that it's a small company. Why it cannot be a huge multinational company like Procter & Gamble, Henkel, or something like this? Simply because with big companies, there is nothing that you can strategize for. The strategy is already developed for years to come. It is very advanced. It is thought through, and it is supported by a multitude of different tools and so on. What I want you to do, I want you to find a small company that you can have a say for. So you will kind of like pretend that you own this company. It is going to be your company for the time being of the project. And I will ask you to decide to go and internationalize that company. So I will ask you to select a market that this company should expand to plan this way, to decide how will you modify marketing mix, product, price, promotion, place, which segment will be your target segment, and how you're going to approach that. What entry mode are we going to use? What kind of internationalization is that going to be, and so on and so on. So when you go to campus, you will see project guidelines. I think they are invisible for you right now, but I'm going to open them to you so that you can see them. And there is a number of questions which are very precise, and they relate directly to the content that we're going to discuss during the class. And these are the decisions that you're going to make. And every class, I will try and put you into groups, and I will give you time to answer these questions and to decide for your company, so that during every class you somehow do contribute towards your final project. The project is not very long in terms of like the number of pages or the number of words, but it does cover quite a comprehensive scope of the internationalization strategy. Okay, so we will go step by step with all the tasks that we have, and every time I assign you a task that will be directly related to your project. So if you do it well, if you think it through, you will already have bits and pieces of your project that will contribute to the final part. So it is going to be assessed according to the written report that I'm going to read, how correct it is, complete, creative, and so on. And also we will have presentations at one of our classes, and then you will be able to present like what you're planning for what company and so on. When you select the company, when you're in the process, I'm going to be available to you to kind of like help you out if you have any questions, if there is anything that you're not sure about. I am going to help you make the best choice so that the company is kind of like easy to deal with, that you can get creative rather than struggle with some basics. Are there any questions for this? Is it all kind of like clear right now, or is there anything that you would like to know? Something that I should explain more? Something popped on chat? Everything okay? Thank you, Denise. Awesome. So this is the group project. This is the 40% of your class. Now, as for the rules of engagement, I always have that slide, so I'm going to also share it now. As I said, the attendance of the class is not mandatory. You can join, you don't have to join. We understand we're all consenting adults, so things are happening and it's fine. However, your class participation counts towards your grade. And with Zoom tools, it is very easy to actually find out whether you are connected or not connected. With the group work that we do, we will also see if you are actually present and contributing. The deadline for the project is, I'm going to show you dates in a moment. Thank you, Lena, for that. You're quick, too quick for me. I just talk too much. Okay, so this is the attendance. We start on time. So, you know, like when the class is scheduled at 12 o'clock, I will basically start speaking at 12 o'clock. And I would love to have you at 12 o'clock. It is kind of, it is the netiquette that, that we are all aware of. So please, please, please come on time. Please stay with me. And if possible, somehow react to what I'm saying so that I don't go crazy and I don't start, you know, like talking to you about things which are not relevant to the class. I would like to have the cameras on at least at some point when I ask you to show your faces with the camera. This is what I mean. And, you know, like if you don't show your face ever, and if you don't interact with me ever, then I will just assume that you are basically not present. Okay, so I'm going to be nasty like this. Otherwise, I'm going to be a fairly nice person. I would like us to be respectful, collaborative. So especially when you work in groups, and especially that online environment is challenging, right? You know it because you're sitting in front of a computer and you will be listening to me for an extended period of time. So yeah, so it does require this patience on also on your side and collaboration, especially towards your group members. If there is anything that is going wrong for you, if there is anything that you're not comfortable during the class, if you're not comfortable with me, if you're not comfortable with the group members, if there is like something you don't understand and there is no way you can find out from campus or anything, just talk to me. Don't wait until the end of the class. Let me know as soon as possible, and then we will find a solution. That also applies to group work, because group work can be an excellent experience. It can also be a tough one depending who your group members are. So just, you know, let's keep an open channel of communication. It is a 4-credit course, so it does require some work, but it is going to be easier because you will have a group of people working with you. It will be definitely much easier if you apply yourself to those small tasks that we have, and then you just keep progressing with every class. And at the end, you will kind of like put that together and polish that a little bit. And then it is much, much easier, especially for the final test when you come to class. If you, at the end of the semester, if you decide to listen to all of the meetings, that is going to be a very tough experience. So I suggest that you just, if you can, you come to the class and you are engaged in what we're doing here. Are there any questions or comments here? Is there anything that you would like me to add or to remove? Something else that you need? Something that you definitely don't need? I don't see.
No, I think so. Everything is understand, and maybe uh, I don't know if it's a good idea, the cameras, because I don't know if the internet can collapse or something like that.
Oh,
Sometimes.
yeah, that is true. The internet, it gets tricky. Okay, so we will kind of like work with what we have. So hopefully, well, that's why we're recording. Nicholas initiated that process, so we will have a recording. Even if the internet collapses, then still I'm talking. So there will be that kind of like a plan B option. And yeah, okay. So since more or less we are on the same page, let's move on. And let's talk about the agenda. This is going to be a quick one because what we're going to do today, we're having introduction. We're just finishing the introduction, and we're going to talk about internationalization. So what it is, how do you look at that? How do you approach it? How do you decide whether a company is internationalized or not? What are the company's approaches to internationalization? Then our next class is going to be about small and medium enterprises strategies in foreign market. We are focusing on small and medium enterprises with what we discussed, mostly because this is where you can see and make those important decisions regarding internationalizations. For huge companies, the decisions are typically already made and you're just executing them. And SMEs, despite their small size, they actually constitute the majority of companies in the market. In the European market, SMEs are roughly 99.5% of companies. So only a small percentage of companies are those multinationals. So we are going to focus on that. Okay, so now what's next coming? Then we're going to talk about selection of a product in a foreign market. So how do you decide what is the best product to internationalize, and how do you decide what is the best market to go to? And then we will discuss entry modes. So the strategies of entering to a foreign market. Then the next element is going to be the analysis of international environment, the PESTEL analysis, political, economical, social, technological, legal, and so on. And then we're going to talk about actual marketing strategic decisions, which is segmentation, targeting, and positioning, including standardization and adaptation of those decisions. The final one, last but not least, is marketing mix decision, product price, promotion place, and how do you apply those decisions to the foreign market. So that's the plan. This is the agenda. And these are the dates of our meetings. You already have them on campus. And I will try to remember to send you reminders every time we see each other. And as you can see, there is a big gap between online class 1 and online class 3, the times that we see each other, because we have our class today. And then the next one is actually in 4 weeks. So there's a long, long break. And actually, this class that we are supposed to have next week is going to be a self-study. So that's why I will put you in those small groups, and I will ask you to perform a particular task. And the task is going to be that I will ask you to select 4 small companies that you would consider for your project. So I will ask you to do a proper research. This is a research that takes a lot of time. So it is just fair to give you all of these weeks, and I will ask you to submit your proposals to the campus website, so that we can, on the basis of the research that you do, that we can select the company that you will base your project upon. So then we have another online class. Then there's going to be another self-study part when you receive a task to complete for your project. And then we continue with online courses according to the schedule, finishing with project presentations on December 19th, so right before Christmas. And then there is an exam on January 9th. It's early in the morning, so if you're in the right time zone, then it's going to be easy. If not, then not necessarily. It's an online exam on campus platform. And then if you want, there is a Q&A session, but this is not mandatory. So if you want to get the feedback on your projects, if you have any questions, if you have any comments, this is the sessions that we can that you can use. Okay, and there is a good question from Maciej regarding the 4 companies, whether you have to contact them or whether it's strictly theoretical. Well, the way you put the question, it's okay. So it does not require contact with companies. Yes, you can use your own company if it's a small one. It probably would be even more interesting and potentially beneficial. It is theoretical in a way that you will not have to actually invest any of your money. You will not have to get companies' approval for the decisions that you make. However, I would like it to be as practical as possible, meaning that you will make decisions which will be based on the information that you obtain. So the more information you have, the easier the decision-making process is going to be, the more practical it is going to be. So occasionally in this class, I do have people who contact companies. I actually had a case when students invited a company owner to the presentation. The company owner was very impressed. Sometimes company owners use the information that you collect for them because they find it useful, but this is up to you. My goal is to make the theory that we discuss more realistic with your trying to actually utilize that for the purposes of internationalization of the company. So it makes sense if you have a small company, if you select a company that you understand how they operate, they don't do something completely exotic like, I don't know, solar panels, petroleum extraction. That's going to be, like weird and very specific and very restricted by the market. What works best and is easiest, if it's not your own company, which should be like in your head, comprehensible. What works best are companies that make food, clothing, appliances, like small tangible things that can be offered. Also occasionally with services, but because we're going to plan international strategy for expanding to international markets, it also makes sense that the company is not internationalized yet, not too much. If you have a company that is already global, then there isn't much that we can do, right? I had a very nice projects which were kind of like easy and at the same time creative, with companies that made, like some local accessories, some local food products, some local cosmetics, and like things like that. So that really works well. With other ideas, we can always discuss it. We can have a session. We can see what your proposal is, and I can tell you what are the pros and cons of that solution. All right. Okay. Is there any other question for now? Or not? Okay, if not now, then you know how to find me. Thank you, Maciej. You're very responsive. Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so now what we're going to do. I would like you to get to know each other. That's going to be the plan for today, for the upcoming 15 minutes. And I'm going to ask you to do the following. I will put you into groups and I will assign them randomly, which is going to be interesting because you never know who is going to be where. If you end up being completely unhappy with your group, you'll have to contact me and I will have to reassign, reshuffle the groups, which we're going to do over the upcoming weeks. But hopefully you are all very cool, young, creative, ambitious people, and it's all going to work well. I will ask you to select a group leader, a person who will be kind of like will have a little bit more responsibilities. The key responsibility of a group leader would be to upload task sheets to the campus. I don't need everyone to do the uploading. It's just for the group leader. And then there is all the glory. There isn't much that the person is not responsible for doing all the work or coordinating the work, just for uploading. I think that you will be self-governing and self-coordinating. Just for the sake of the game and fun, I would like you to give your group a name. So you decide that we're the, I don't know, Red Riding Cups, and that's or we're, I don't know, like a group of plant lovers, and that's it. And I would like you to talk to each other a little bit, get to know each other, find what you have in common, find what you have, what differentiates you, just so that you know who your group partners are. And I would like you to download the first task sheet from campus. So you already have to access campus. There is a task sheet, and I would like you to fill it in and submit it by the end of the class to the campus. Is that clear? Yes, no? Okay. Did you find the task sheet on campus?
Yes.
Thank you. There is voice, and it's Maciej again. Oh God. Okay, good. I'm already distributing participation points as we speak. All the people I can see, all the people I can hear. Okay, so if you can find that, now let's see how that works. Meanwhile, if you have questions, you can summon me to this room. We have 26 participants, which means it is actually going to be, well, it's going to be 25 because that includes me. So I'm going to make how many rooms? I'm going to make 5 rooms that should put 5 people in each. Is that okay with you? Okay, I don't.
Yes, it's okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, thank God, another voice. Okay, so I'm going to do that. It's going to be 5 people per room, and we will see what happens. I'm going to give you 15 minutes to complete the task, and after 15 minutes, I'm going to bring you back, okay, to the living. Is that clear? Okay.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay, good.
Excuse me, madam.
Yes.
Just have a question. All the student ID are mandatory, or it's gonna be fine without it?
Come again. What's the question? Sorry.
On the class worksheet, you ask from the student's ID. Do we have to put like the student
Well,
ID?
it says student's ID, but if you don't remember, just don't worry. It's for people who scribble like chicken and I can't read it, then I can always look at the student ID. But because you're going to type it, it's going to be easy. Okay, so don't worry about that. Okay, thank you. Thank you for the question, Nicholas. Okay, people, so I am putting you into those rooms and God help us. I'm going to, let's see if there are any options. I am going to close you after. I'm going to give you 15 minutes. Let's see what happens. Okay, let's do it. You have to accept the invitation. Good. I'm sorry. Coming back, spatial dimension in terms of how internationalization is organized and approached. DM starts for domestic market. A domestic market means your home country, a place that you know, a place that you're familiar with. You know the rules, you know the laws, you know the society, you know the consumers, you know the competitors, you know the partners that you have, the suppliers. Around the domestic market, you have what we call a comfort zone, countries which are similar in terms of culture, politics, some regulations, maybe lifestyle, maybe language. So this is the comfort zone. And when we talk about the spatial dimension, the first kind of like type of expansion is a concentric form. And that means that a company operating on a domestic market selects an international, a foreign market to enter on the basis of convenience. So it is going to be not too far, not too different, safe, something that feels convenient. For example, for Poland, Our neighbors, this is our comfort zone. These are the countries that we know, countries that we travel to often, countries that we are familiar with culture. Maybe we have similar language, like for example, Polish and Czech, or Polish and Slovak language, right? And when you look at the map of countries that Poland cooperates most internationally, Germany has the biggest share because this is our big and reputable and close neighbor that we have long history with, and it's easy to cooperate with that country. When you look at that graph, Czech Republic, which is a way smaller country than Germany, it still constitutes a big portion of our international exchange because of this convenience. Right? So this concentric form is clean, convenient, comfortable, and often practiced. Then the second type of expansion strategy is when we approach the markets selectively. That means that you no longer look within your comfort zone. You actually look further, and you look for destinations which are not as easy, not as approachable, but way more beneficial, potentially profitable. So that means that you look further, you don't limit yourself to your closest neighbors, and you select a market that is going to be your final destination. An example, a Korean company, LG, that manufactures, well, many things, but a lot of household appliances, electronics. When they were looking for a place to build a huge factory in the European Union, they selected Poland. And they built a company that is close to Wrocław. This is south of Poland. And LG basically looked for opportunities. First and foremost, Poland is a big market. There were a lot of governmental helps and like tax programs for companies who would decide to have a foreign direct investment in Poland. So things were made easier and more profitable for them. They knew that Poland has a lot of skilled workforce. They knew that there's a good connection, physical connection between Poland, south of Poland, Wrocław, and other key big cities in the whole European Union. And they also knew that once you are in the European Union, you can easily sell whatever you make in the European Union to other European Union countries, right? Because of the freedom of the flow of goods, people, and capital. And then the third form is called an island form. And that means that you, similarly to selective form, you also find a place that is very profitable, very potential, with huge potential outside of your comfort zone. But this first country is just a testing ground. You only want to find out whether you can operate in this particular environment, and then you want to expand further. So this is kind of like a testing place, and then you move on. And an example of that is a Toyota bank, which is a branch of financial services of Toyota. Again, they wanted to go beyond simple manufacturing. They wanted to offer financial services also to European customers. And they wanted to see if it's really feasible, if European customers would be attracted to Japanese company offering financial services. And they also decided to come to Poland as this first step, because in Poland, Toyota has an excellent reputation. We love Toyota. We think it's high quality, reputable, and so on. So it is a good name. It is a good reputation, good image for a brand that offers financial services. And once they came to Poland, they succeeded. They learned about the market. They decided that this is a good way to go. Then they expanded to other European countries. So this is how the spatial dimension of internationalization works. And then we have organizational dimension. So how is it really done from operational perspective? And there are again 3 approaches, or for some reason water related. The first one is called waterfall. Waterfall because it means that you enter foreign markets kind of like in a cascade manner. You do one, you do your research, you select a country, you enter a country, you feel comfortable, then you do your research again, you select another country, you go to that country, and so on, and so on, and so on. So you go step by step, incrementally. This is a slow process. You use a lot of resources, you are very well prepared, but also that means that there is a bigger chance of success. You're not taking bigger risks, and you're kind of like very carefully moving one by one. A bipolar opposite is a sprinkler approach. And that means that you do your research once, and then you go to all the countries at the same time, right? So the logic is that there has to be a certain similarity among the countries, but it means that you make this one big effort, one at a time. And that also means that whatever strategy you prepare, it is going to be somehow applicable to all the markets. It is going to fit the markets, but maybe not perfectly. So there is a little bit bigger chance of, let's say, failure in some countries, but at the same time, it is time efficient and it is more money efficient than the waterfall approach. But in reality, life is life. So there is always a hybrid version, and this is the hybrid version when, for example, the first country that you enter strategically, slowly, with great preparation, and then you think that you've learned enough and you approach several countries at the same time. And then you say, oh, okay, but this is a very different destination, so let's then go incrementally again, all right? So it's a combination of the two approaches. But the important thing is to remember that the first one means that you are very well prepared. It's a long process and it is also very resource heavy. The other one is faster, less expensive, but also possibly it carries more mistakes, right? While the hybrid approach is something in the middle. And when you look at the company and you want to decide whether it's internationalized or not, the answer is never simple. It is never yes or no. It is always a degree of something. And there are kind of like 5 factors, again, dimensions here, 5 factors that you can look in a company in order to find out whether they are internationalized or not. So one of them is the question of how many foreign markets are you present at? You can have a company that sells 90% of their products in Germany, but only Germany. So are they internationalized or not? Well, to some extent, yes, but not too much because it is the deep knowledge of just one country, right? So the second question that you can ask is how similar the markets are. Because if you are present as a Polish company, if you're present in Czech Republic and Slovakia and Slovenia, and then, Ukraine, maybe Hungary, these markets are very similar. This is Central Eastern European market, so plenty of political, historical, cultural similarities. However, if you go to China, US, and Brazil, oh, that's very different, right? That's a wide scope. And for some reason, the markets are not similar and your expertise in internationalization grows. Then the question is of the type of foreign activity and why. Why would you go abroad? And it can be a passive motive. It can be a passive, simple reaction. You have to internationalize. For example, the market is saturated. You cannot sell anything else. Your product is too old for the market. You have to look for a new one, right? That means that this is not really your choice. You're not proactive. You are just kind of like reacting to external forces. However, with some companies, they have those active approach, active motives, and they say, yes, we want to be number one in the world. We want to have an experience in this country. We want to sell more, and we have found out the way to do it, right? So this is the active approach. Then we have the question of using intermediaries, using partners to help you. And lower degrees of internationalization mean that you rely a lot on your partners. Some companies sometimes have a partner that does everything for them, specializes in selling to foreign markets, and you just sit quietly and you do your thing, right? So that means that's a low internationalization because you don't learn much about those markets. However, if you are actually the force behind what you do, if you have your own foreign activities, you have your own people abroad, your own factories or shops and personnel, then it means that you are more highly internationalized. And then finally, last but not least, is a type of involvement. How involved are you? How committed you are to being abroad? And low commitment, low involvement is simple export-import because it's short term. You can easily stop that. There aren't many strings attached. However, when you start moving certain organizational functions abroad, for example, marketing, production, resources, you obtain resources from abroad, then it means that you become really involved and you cannot stop being internationalized very quickly, right? So when we look at each company, you can see that there could be the same company can be at the different levels depending on which dimension do you look. So the answer to whether a company is internationalized or not is always, it depends in which aspect, right? So that's the internationalization decision aspect. And then, since we're talking about theory, which is the introduction to the whole marketing logic, there are also models. There are models that explain how the process takes place, and models that are somehow related to the bigger picture, the bigger economy. And we have a number of models. I'm just going to show you like the scope, but we will discuss two of them, which are most commonly applied to this context. Okay, so the first group of models that we're just going to look at, but not really go deeply, are models based in macroeconomy, so looking at bigger picture from country's perspective, and they explain the reasons for foreign direct investment on the basis of the availability and potential benefits coming from access to capital, access to workforce, to labor, and its effectiveness, access to natural resources, and so on and so on. Then we have reasons, we have models that are based on microeconomic aspects. Microeconomic refer to companies, to the industry, and as you can see, those models can be based on what is called the monopolistic advantage, which means that you have a company that has some unique skill, power, and scale, and they want to expand with that knowledge, skill, and so on to international markets. We have oligopolistic reaction. Oligopoly is a type of a market when you have several big players, big companies, and some of them are already internationalized, and you kind of have to follow, you have to react, you have to follow them to kind of stay in the game. Then we have the model based on currency zones, so different currencies and the benefit of the currency exchange rate. Then we have models which are based on the convenience of location, that you are just located in a place that makes doing business easy and accessible. For example, for financial services, the top location used to be London because of the time zone, so that it was, like whatever services you had, they were accessible to many companies in different time zones. But with the increasing economic activity and growth of Asian countries, this financial capital was moved or maybe is shared with Singapore, right? Which is another convenient location for banking services. And then we have a theory of product life cycle. As you are probably aware, products, similarly to people or anything, any living being, the products are created, they are launched to the market. They slowly grow in the share of the market until they reach the phase of growth or maturity. And this is a moment when you have to make a decision what to do next, because there aren't many products that can live forever. Most products at some point grow old and outdated, old-fashioned, and you cannot sell them in the same form anymore. And one of the decisions of how to salvage that situation, of course, you can discontinue the product, but you can also try and look for markets which are less developed, a little bit more behind, and they have kind of like different requirements, and you can move the product to these markets to still keep selling the product in the same form. Because you have to remember that making any changes to products, it's actually very expensive. So we try to avoid that, and we try to keep it for as long as we can in the same situation, in the same form, right? Because this is most cost saving. And then we have 3 eclectic models. We'll call them eclectic, which means that they combine different elements, that they combine different approaches. And out of these 3, I will just make it kind of like easier and shorter. We will talk about Uppsala model and the network model. Uppsala is kind of like more traditional. It's older model, so it works for in many cases, but also in some cases, not that much. And then there's network model, which is expanded, and it seems to take current, let's say, context more into consideration. Okay, so let's start with the Uppsala model. It was created in Uppsala, obviously, by a group of researchers, but it was created in the 70s. So that means that it was like 50 years ago. That's a long, long time, and many things have changed since the 70s. However, some things, as we will find out, stay the same. So Uppsala model assumes that the internationalization is an incremental process. Incremental meaning it happens step by step. It is fairly slow, ordered, structured, and your involvement increases with time and with experience. So it takes place via this learning process. So you start slow and safe, and gradually you enter markets which are more complex, more distant. There is a bigger uncertainty connected with that particular activity. And your involvement as a result keeps increasing. So if we are to illustrate that, what you can see on this yet another graphic of mine, so I hope you can appreciate my skills. This is actually a simple table. And what you can see here are 2 dimensions, right? The first dimension is the is companies' involvement in the foreign markets. Occasional export, not much involvement whatsoever. Establishing your foreign sales branches, way more involved, way more engaged in the foreign markets. Then these two elements, they constitute foreign direct investments, right? This is how it's called, foreign direct investment. So that means that you actually invest your money for good in a particular foreign market. So this is a dimension that is called simply increasing market involvement. So that's one thing. Then the second dimension is that you increase your geographic diversification. You reach more markets and more diversified markets. As a result, the outcome, the vector that results out of those 2 dimensions is called an increasing internationalization, right? So you just go slowly, you learn, you expand, and so on. Does that make sense? Somehow, yeah, okay. Can you see kind of like any cases when this would be this slow incremental process going step by step, that it would not be the best solution? Can you see any like issues with that approach or something?
Maybe from social medias.
Okay. What do you mean?
Social medias might try to launch in many different countries across the globe at the same time.
Okay, and why?
To get as much users on it as possible and to connect people
Okay.
instead of staying
Yeah.
local.
Yeah, okay, excellent, good. So we can already see that there are sectors or industries which would not like to go like this. Anything else? Any other potential criticism of this market? Oh, sorry, of this model, of this approach?
But in my opinion, social media, that's Upsilon model could be also a good idea because the marketer have to take care about the culture, the culture of different kind of country. I mean, we cannot do the same brand marketing or whatever. Depends if but in USA than China, it could be definitely not the same. So they need to do like some research before send some content. So yeah.
Okay, all right. So yeah, here we go. So the universal marketing response of it depends on various aspects. It is always applicable, but both points are very valid. Okay, so let me show you what I have as a criticism, which will refer to what Nicholas and Maciej said. Basically, what is criticized is that this model, the way it is organized, it doesn't allow for skipping any phases. It assumes that you have to go step by step, that you have to go incrementally, that you have to start with export, then a little bit of this, then a little bit of that, and then you do this. So that's the first limitation. Then something that relates to what Maciej and Nicholas said, it doesn't really work well for service industries and for highly internationalized industries. So when we talk about anything that is based on technology, anything that is based on internet solutions, that means that as long as it's widely available, you can benefit more if you skip the phases, if you move faster, right? So at the same time, it doesn't mean that you can skip the research completely. And occasionally you will have to stop. So we need something in between, right? Between the slow process and between kind of like jumping in both feet into the deep water. It also does not, like it works well for small companies, but not necessarily for companies that have high resources. You have plenty of money, plenty of people, so you just throw the money at the problem and you keep moving, right? So that's another thing. Now we have those huge companies with plenty of money and they can simply afford skipping those phases. So the internationalization process became faster because of the technology diffusion of education diffusion. For example, business education is the same all over, right? The world with some small tweaks. For example, when I went to visit schools in Vietnam and we wanted to start a partnership, we learned that an obligatory course that every student, including incoming students, have to take is Marxist philosophy. So I thought, oh, okay, that is going to be an interesting twitch in what we teach, because for business students, knowing Marx and his communist theories, that is something, let's say, unheard of in Europe. So here we go, right? The same, but different along the way. So a model that, let's say, allows to include more factors in this internationalization process is a network approach. And according to that approach, internationalization is a result of relations that are developed between companies, their partners, suppliers, customers, and so on. And we have two dimensions here. The first one is the level of market internationalization. That means that we have a market that is connected with other markets in other countries. And then we have companies internationalization. So we look at a single company and we say, hey, do you have the experience? Do you have the capabilities? Do you have the connections? Do you know the people? Or you don't? So then we get four strategies. The first one is called early beginners. And that means that you yourself don't know much about internationalization and you operate in a market which does not have many international connections either. And that means that this is where the Uppsala model works really well, because you keep learning step by step, and you go slowly, and you pace yourself, and you build your confidence, and you build your presence. So that's early beginners is basically the Uppsala model right now. So still okay, but just one of a few options. Then the second option is when you have what we call late beginners. That means that your market, your customers, and it's already internationalized, many connections, but you yourself, for some reason, remained lonely without any of that experience. And this is a case when your contractors, when your suppliers, when your customers actually pull you into this international network. And because they are internationalized, you in a way get involved in that, and you also start operating internationally. Then we have the opposite situation when we have a market with low internationalization, but you yourself, you're a cosmopolitan being. You have the connections, you know companies, you meet people, you speak languages, you're fluent in internationalization, and that makes you a lone international. That makes you a pioneer in a market, and that means that you will be pulling your customers, your suppliers, your partners, or cooperators. You will pull them into the international network. You will make them part of your network, and because you want to grow, they will grow with you, and you become kind of, as I said, a pioneer. And then we have a last case, which is called international among others. And that means that it's internationalized. I mean, like, the market is internationalized, you're internationalized, everybody knows someone, and we have those connections, we have knowledge, we have know-how, we know how to communicate, and so on and so on. So what happens here? This is a perfect case to kind of like work in this synergetic manner. So you can achieve synergy. And that means that when you join a network like this, you offer your specialized knowledge and experience, expertise, and so on, skills, and you take the rest from the network. So you can have a great idea, somebody has the money, and it somehow works. You have a unique product, but someone has already international distribution system and advertising, somebody else has advertising agency, and so on and so on. So the network, kind of like a pure networking, means that you contribute some and you get a lot. That also means that this is a very savvy process. You don't have to have all of the resources, because your partners will provide certain resources for you, because you will provide them with something that they miss, right? So then we become more specialized and more dependent on each other. So that requires really careful coordination, so that there is balance, and that there is this kind of like equal distribution or fair distribution of power. So as you can see now, with all of these information technologies and increased transparency, and so access to information as well, this network approach kind of like feels like it's a better way of explaining what is happening. It does include the slow incremental process, but it also takes into consideration all of those interconnections that take place. And then we can ask for reasons for internationalization. So why on earth would companies want to go abroad? Why aren't they happy with what they have at home? Why do they want to experience this internationalization? Do you have any ideas? Is there anything like you can tell me, like, what could be the reason? If you had your own company, or when you have your own company, or you work for a company, like, why would they want to go abroad? What would be the motive?
I'm gonna get more market size.
Bigger market size.
Making me
Excellent.
have bigger market size.
Yes, good. Thank you, Leona. What else, Maciej?
Financial incentive.
Financial incentive, absolutely. Okay. What else?
More person, they want to have like a presence
in all the countries. I mean, for example, the Chinese cars, they want to expand the market because they want to have this, I don't know how I can say in English, but they want to have more market in order that everyone can use the car and maybe expand the brands, different brands.
Yes, very nice reason. Ambition. They want to be everywhere, right? Okay, yeah, good. What else?
And
More data.
go for it.
Okay. More data, more information for later innovation.
Okay, yes, good, right? Nick?
And outside demands, like for example, like some stuff like Grab or Bolt, whatever, some other country want to use and ask the company to have the services, but they are not implemented in the country yet.
Excellent, good. Okay, all right. Okay, any other reasons that come to your mind just on top of it? No? Okay, that's really good. These are very nice reasons covering different aspects of the motivation to internationalize. So what I have here is kind of like a set. It's absolutely not a full and comprehensive picture, so it can be built upon, but it will like organize, let's say, categorize certain motives for internationalization. So one of the groups is when you expect benefits, you expect profit, you expect, like you have some great expectations because good things are waiting there to happen. So you will sell at a higher price, you will sell to a bigger number, your market will grow, you will sell to more wealthy customers, you will get some support or incentives, tax incentives from the government. There are often those special economic zones or some time constrained benefits that you can access when you internationalize. So that's, for example, one group of expected benefits, financial, monetary, and profit-wise. You can also sometimes certain companies can expect benefits of scale and the experience effect. And in some industries, it is actually pretty important because they say that you cannot be profitable if you operate on a small scale. Sometimes you really have to achieve this critical mass of production in order to be successful. And then the more you do, the more you produce, the bigger your experiences, operations are more seamless, costs are divided among the bigger number of units, and so on and so on. I know two examples of industries. Don't ask me why I know these two, but for some reason I do. One is concrete industry. Concrete, the stuff that is used for construction, something that makes things hold together. Concrete is heavy, it is difficult to move, it is relatively inexpensive. And those companies say that you cannot be a small concrete manufacturer. In order to be profitable because of the bulk and because of the weight and because of the specificity, you really have to go big or you don't go at all. And the completely opposite example is the manufacturers of syringes. The syringe, what you use for injections, right? For vaccinations, the plastic tube with the pump that you push the medicine toward, like into the muscle. So there is in contrast, this is very small, light, made of plastic, inexpensive, cheap to make and cheap to sell. And that also means that if you want to be profitable, you have to sell huge amounts. So when you manufacture syringes, you really have to think like half globally, right? There are a few big manufacturers in the world and the rest is just peanuts, right? So sometimes you have to achieve this scale. Then you can have this like special thing within the company. Like you could have a unique assortment, something that nobody else makes. Or you could have special knowledge or technological advantage, something that makes you a player on the market that is desirable. And you know that you will be wanted and you you want to go and you want to build your brand and you want to be present in other markets. And then on the proactive reasons, you have those reasons which are very much related to kind of like more subjective. It could be a management personal involvement that refers to this Chinese experience, Chinese example that was mentioned, when sometimes companies have an ambition of being present everywhere. And there are some companies who say, in order to become a global leader, we actually have to sell in every single country. Otherwise, we cannot say that we are a global leader, right? Sometimes it is a matter of, like prestige. For many years, if you were a music creator, like the market that you really wanted to be present was the US market for some reason. That was a prestigious thing. And once you said, oh yes, like I sold my album on the US market, that was an impressive thing to do. And occasionally you can have a particular knowledge about the market because you've been there, because you know the people, because you made some personal connection, you learned something special. And I actually had a student like this several years ago. He went on his international exchange to South Korea. He did a short internship, and for some reason, he absolutely fell in love with people, culture, food, language, drinks, and the culture. So when he returned to Poland, he said, okay, I am going to start a company and I'm going to partner with this Korean company that I did internship for. And we kind of thought that was overly ambitious, that is not going to work because Korea is so different. But because of his experience, he actually knew how to talk to them. He knew how to convince them, and he became very successful with his business thanks to his connections to Korea. And these are reasons that we call proactive, which means that this is our internal motivation, drive, ambition, plan, and we see profits and we go for them. There is a second group of reasons which are called reactive. And reactive reasons, that means that we were kind of like pushed, we forced to internationalize. And here we go, a competitive pressure. So there are just too many competitors in our domestic market. We can't sell anymore. We're either not good enough or not dynamic enough, or I don't know what, not cheap enough. So we are pressed by the competition and we look for a window of opportunity outside our market. Then we have a huge, well, not huge, but then we have a certain group of reasons which are connected to the market industry, and that includes overproduction in the industry. That means that there's just that the supply is bigger than the demand. You can have a sudden decrease of sales in domestic market because something has changed. I don't know, the law has changed, technology has changed. For example, in 2000, what was it? It was in, I think, 2004, where European Union banned all advertising of tobacco products. And there were advertising agencies that specialized in advertising tobacco products. And they basically lost the whole market, right? So there is a change that means that you can no longer sell here. You can no longer sell your products here. You have to find a new destination. Saturation of a domestic market. Nobody wants your product anymore. You have to look for new products. Everybody has it, right? And then you can have, as an industry or as a company, you can have too much production abilities and you're just not using your full potential. And you will be way more productive, effective, and profitable if you just manufacture more and you have to somehow, and you have to sell it somewhere, and you decide to sell it to foreign markets. And then you have, I don't remember whom of you actually said that, but this is when you are really invited, asked to join to join this international club. It's not your idea, but You can be either very close to international customers or ports of entry or borders, and you say, whatever, it's easier to sell abroad than to sell domestically. This is the case of some cities on the west, in the west of Poland, especially northwest. There is a big city of Szczecin, and those people say that it is absolutely easier to commute, communicate, travel, do business with the Germans than with Poland, right? Just because it's close, it's convenient, and so on. Then you can have this request from abroad. So somebody can say, hey, would you like to work with me? You know, like I can see a potential. I could sell your product. Why don't we partner up, right? So that could be also an option. And then the last thing is when you follow your customers. You really have some great customers. They decided to expand. They will now operate abroad, and you say, oh, whatever, I'm going with you, right? I will, if I don't move, I will lose those clients. They will look for someone who will offer them more comprehensive service, and you feel that you're forced to move. So basically, you have two groups of reasons: those which come with your own initiatives, looking for opportunities, and those when you react and you are kind of like pushed toward the internationalization, right? And usually there is a mix of those approaches among companies. What really makes a difference in operating in a domestic and a foreign market is a risk. And for years, when I talked about it, many of the risks were really like either from the past or really hypothetical. But nowadays, it seems that, well, some of them became, again, big risks. For example, the unstable political situation or unstable governments, right? We didn't used to have it in Europe, but now we do. So, yeah, so the list of risk factors is long, starting with soft risk factors like different cultures. The fact that you don't necessarily understand how different cultures operate. And we think that, you know, like us Europeans, for example, that we're all the same, but then you have a person from Spain, a person from Germany, and a person from Poland talking, and you realize that we're, you know, like there are differences. For example, when somebody says, okay, let's have a meeting at 8 o'clock in the morning. You know, like some people will come at 8 sharp, some people will come at, you know, like 8:05, and other people will come at 9 and say, yeah, I mean, like you said, in the morning, right? Here we go. So time is a thing which is a very subjectively perceived, and that comes with culture. But also we have those objective things like foreign debt. We have currency fluctuations. We have limitations that can be imposed by governments on international companies. Like, for example, they will say they will put higher taxation on your products, or they will say there is a certain quota of products that can be imported or exported, right? And you can have technological piracy or the protection of intellectual property, where, especially when you deal with technology. And you can have corruption in some countries, right? So there are various risk factors which have to be taken into consideration when you plan your international activities. However, we all do that because we know, I mean, it's not that we all do that, but lots of companies do that because we know that in the end, it does bring many benefits that include cost-related benefits such as, I don't know, scale of production, lower marketing costs. Some of them are related to market, like different group of customers that you will like, better conditions. They can be related to supply, such as natural resources, perhaps good labor, and maybe some ingredients that you need. And finally, you can get support either from your own home country to internationalize, or maybe from some other country. When you bring your business, they will support this activity because it is also beneficial for them. When we look at marketing, actually, the basic assumptions stay the same. So there is, you know, it's the same core philosophy, the same principles. the same methods, techniques, tools. We already mentioned segmentation, targeting, positioning. We mentioned product, price, promotion, place, which is the marketing mix. So all of that stays the same, but you have to make a decision whether you adapt it to the foreign market or whether you try to standardize it and keep the same, taking all of these previously mentioned factors into consideration, right? So when you work on your project, that will be to some extent your task. We will discuss that during class. Each of these topics we will discuss, but your decision will be how much can you keep, because you have a company that has operation here in a particular market. You want to internationalize that, so you will have to understand the needs of the new market, and you have to decide what will you change, what will you keep to make it successful and to make it work for that particular context. Okay, so now the last thing that I don't know if the last, but the next thing that I'm going to talk about today, well, the last thing, I promise, it's going to be international orientations. I just made up my mind because I realized that I didn't give you a break. So I stand corrected, and that's the for international orientations, and you're free to go. So now, we talked about the motives. We talked about the dimensions of internationalization, how to decide whether a company is internationalized or not. And those international orientations actually reflect the company's point of view, how companies approach internationalization, what do they think about it, and how do they, what is their underlying philosophy and attitude towards international operations. We have 4 international orientations, 4, let's say, philosophies with a very small p, and they are called ethnocentric, polycentric, regiocentric, and geocentric. Are you vaguely familiar with the terms? Nod your head, if so, no, okay, yes, no, some people, yes, okay, so it's kind of like, all right, I am going to talk about it anyway, because that's what I do. So let's start with the first one. Ethnocentric approach. When you are ethnocentric, that means that you kind of like, you're, in a way, if you were a person, you would be egocentric. A company is ethnocentric because it values and it kind of like cherishes whatever it has, like domestically. So you are a company that has a certain type of operation here in a domestic market, an ethnocentric approach that you think this is the best approach. And when you decide to internationalize, you have one marketing program that you apply to your domestic market, that you apply to your international market. You don't make any differences. And you say, my way or highway. Okay, this is how I'm going to do it. This is a combination. This is often a combination of, or like a choice between arrogance or ignorance. If you are a small company, you're often ignorant and you have simply no idea that there are such differences between markets. And you think, I like vanilla ice cream. Everybody likes vanilla ice cream. I will export vanilla ice cream, right? So this is an ignorant approach. You will learn your lesson, but you start with that. Arrogant approach is when you're a big company and you say, I don't care. I know that I am right. Everybody likes vanilla ice cream, right? My research, like my family likes, my coworkers like vanilla ice cream. Let's go. So these are usually those 2 approaches. That also means that your decision making is centralized because you have headquarters and they decided vanilla ice cream it is. Let's go. Typically, you don't really care about foreign markets, right? Because if you cared, you would do some research, or you would ask them, do you like vanilla ice cream? Do you really want to buy this kind of product? Maybe you would like to pay a smaller price. I like Nicolas said French arrogance. I like it, and you'll see an example in a moment. You ignore soft elements, you ignore, like differences between cultures, language, people, and so on. You just think, about hardcore things like quality, size, and so on. So it is either big corporations or company with zero experience, and this is more like an export marketing. You have one solution and you export it. So let me show you an example that I have, and that is going to have a French connection, trust me, Nicolas, so bear with me. So Disneyland is a big American corporation, or Disney company is a big American corporation, and you know, like they also have those, or they had those resorts, theme parks that are called either Disneyland or Disney World. And they started in the US, so they had a Disneyland in Florida, they had a Disneyland in California, it worked well, and then they decided to expand. And their first destination was Tokyo, Japan. And actually, it worked well. You know, for some reason, despite the history and everything, Japanese people like Americans, like American culture. And they actually bought into an idea of going to a big theme park for a few days, staying around, you know, there was accommodation provided, and coming with your own cars, and you know, like eating French fries and drinking Coke and so on. And that was cool. And then Disneyland, on the wave of that success, decided to go to France, Paris. And this is where everything went wrong, because the French actually did not like the American way of doing stuff. They said, we don't want to spend 2 or 3 days in a theme park. We want to come and go, like Europeans do, right? You commute with public transportation, you get a train or something, you get to the place, you spend 1 day, and then you go back home and you're happy, right? The French said, well, French fries, this is offensive, right? It has nothing to do with France. So why do we have to eat when we walk? Why can't we sit? Why can't we have a nice restaurant instead of some basic cafeteria? Where is wine to lunch, right? That was another thing. And then there was all human resource thing when they said, you know, Americans wanted everybody to be the same, kind of like the cookie cutter approach, uniforms, the same, you know, like hair tight or short nails, no colors, no tattoos, no piercing. And French basic said, what? That's not how we do it, right? We like the diversity. We like to express ourselves, and we're going to do it the way. So basically what happened is that the big corporation learned a lesson. For 3 years, they were running on loss, and nothing worked because the French were horribly arrogant, I would say. And they, in a way, they said, no, this is not our way of doing things. And it actually changed when Disneyland Paris, when they hired a French manager, and they started making those adaptations. So they learned a lesson, right? So this ethnocentric approach no longer really worked. Okay, now the second approach, a completely opposite. Polycentric. That means that you as a company do your research. You spend a lot of money. This is an expensive approach. This is like a true international marketing approach. You do your research, and for every country that you are present at, you create a different marketing plan, right? Different, like you adapt the product, pricing, distribution, communication, all of these. That means that the foreign markets are very important to you. And that also means that you will decentralize your decision making. You will have your French representative in France, you will have your Spanish representative in Spain, Polish representative in Poland, because you will want to know about the market, how the market reacts, how they receive your product, and so on and so on. So that's expensive. This is pricey. I have an example that, you know, like I know that from theory, I never really managed to test it, but it just sounds nice. So I'm just going to use it to illustrate what I'm saying. Nestle company. Apparently, Nestle, even though they offer the same kind of product, because they have, you know, like Nescafe and, you know, like some other things, Nesquik, in order to make sure that the coffee tastes the same in every country, they do research and they investigate kind of like the water quality, ingredients quality, people's preferences, so that they create a mix that fits best to the market. And at the same time, it gives the same, let's say, flavor impressions, right? I don't know how much of that is true. This is what I read, so this is a disclaimer, but it's a nice illustration of this approach, right? When you really go into big lengths to make sure that the product really fits each of the countries. Then we have a regiocentric approach, which is kind of like a voice of reason between the two previous approaches, because regiocentric means that you as a company, you realize that there are similarities between markets. With polycentric approach, every market was separate. Here you say, when you look at that, there are similarities, and those similarities will help us save money. Let's save some money. Let's look for some effectiveness of our activities. And that means that you will try to see and group countries according to certain similarities. And they can be different depending on what you do. It could be, let's say, European Union countries because of the freedom of movements of goods, people, and capital, and so on. It could be Baltic countries because they are, like located on the Baltic shore. It could be English-speaking countries because of the language convenience. It could be Muslim countries because religion is a big thing. And for example, with food products, it's a very, very important factor, right? Could be Spanish-speaking countries or Mediterranean countries, right? So there are different keys to how you group the countries, but it has to make sense from your product's perspective, right? It kind of like, it allows you to operate more effectively in terms of effort and cost. My example, again, exotic, is Varta batteries. They make batteries. And it is also an example that probably now has to be more modified. But initially, they identified two regions. One was Western Europe. The other one was Central Eastern, Scandinavian, Balkans, Northeast, West Africa, and Arabic Peninsula. So a big, big region. But at that point, when they made this distinction, there were different, more strict rules in terms of batteries in Western Europe. So they had one kind of batteries there. And there were different, more flexible or less strict rules in the CEMEA region. They also realized that there are different shopping habits. In Western Europe, people would buy big blisters with, let's say, 25 batteries. In these countries, the European, Scandinavian, people would buy, small blisters for batteries, right? And they would go to different kinds of stores where they would look for those batteries. So that followed with a different distribution. And because the batteries were made from different resources, from different kind of a metal, then also the pricing was different because in Western Europe, it was simply more expensive, right? So they had those two regions. And then with time, when we had Central Eastern Europe becoming more similar to Western European countries, they also had to be modified and updated. And finally, last but not least, is a geocentric approach, a little bit similar to ethnocentric, but with a significant difference. With geocentric approach, the global approach, you have one marketing plan for the whole world. But it doesn't mean that you don't know what you're doing. It doesn't mean that you're arrogant. It doesn't mean that you're ignorant. It simply means that your offer addresses what we call a universal consumer need. That means that you found a group of people, a market, a segment that actually wants the same. And you have this unified approach because it works, because this is this kind of a group of customers. You have to do some adaptation, but it's details. It just final, it is just small, touches. And here we go, Nick, this is for you. It is Coca-Cola company, right? So companies like McDonald's, wherever you go, you get the same thing with some small variations, right? You have a pork burger in Poland. You have a fish teriyaki burger in Japan. But all in all, a burger is a burger. French fries are French fries. Coke is Coke. Milkshake is a milkshake, right? And Coca-Cola is yet another case like that. I mean, like it's a soft drink with a certain appeal of tradition and freedom, right? Because that's what we apparently assume with that, with small differentiations. For example, in some countries, it cannot be sweetened with sugar. It has to be some artificial sweeteners. In others, it can be pure sugar. So, like tiny tweaks, but in general, the same appeal, the same approach. And interestingly, this approach can evolve. So you often, small companies start with being ethnocentric. You kind of don't know what you're doing, but you try it out and you realize that if you diversify, if you adapt your activities, you make more money. So you move towards the polycentric, different marketing program for each market. And then you realize that it's crazily expensive and you look for similarities among regions. And then the more similarities you find and the more global need you start addressing, you can move toward the global geocentric approach. And then if you're too sure of yourself, if you get a little bit conceited, if you get arrogant, it is possible that you will go back toward the ethnocentrism when you just don't see the differences and it just doesn't make any sense. And that is going to be the final thing I say for today. I mean, like the final thing is that I say thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for participating. I love the fact that you actually spoke. That's uncommon. This is really very gratifying to me. I'm hoping to see you actually in a month, but meanwhile, I will email you with some instruction and I will upload the presentation and I will, as you can, maybe I will show you one more thing. For those who are patient enough. On campus, you can see class 2 self-study in search of hidden champions. These are those small companies that has something special that could be potentially the companies that you will work with in your project. This is the task. This is the worksheet. And as you can see, you have a month to submit it. And it is for the group leaders to submit. Again, I'll send an email with explanation. And these are some resources where you can read about what hidden champions are so that you know what kind of features do we look for in companies that can be used for your project. Remember, we're not looking for like a unicorn or an actual hidden champion. We just want the company to be similar in some characteristics because this is going to give you a nice space for creative work during the project. And this is, I promise, this is the last thing that I've said. Thank you very much. Enjoy your weekend. And
Thank you.
And I hope
Thank
to
you.
well, next time.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Okay. Thank you, people.
Yeah.
Take care. Stay safe.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have a nice weekend. Bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thank you.